Hello everybody and welcome to today's webcast on developing effective value propositions. My name is Grant Peden and I'm a business facilitator with the Entrepreneurs Programme, which is the Australian Government's flagship initiative for competitiveness and productivity at the firm level. Today I'm joined by Debbie Marks from Dumont Consulting. Debbie is a qualified coach, a trainer and facilitator with over 15 years corporate experience as a project manager across Asia Pacific and Europe. She's also the owner of an SME in the education sector, and she has a business background that specialises in supporting SMEs to achieve their value proposition and business outcomes. Now, throughout the course of today's webcast, there is the option to ask questions at any time. Please feel free to do so. We'll do our best to answer them. We may not have time to get to everyone's questions, but we'll do our absolute best. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Debbie.
Thanks, Grant. Well, welcome everyone. So I guess the first thing I'd quite like to do is actually ask what is the reason that you joined us today. So you'll see in the bottom right hand side of your screen there is an ask a question question, I guess. If you don't mind just clicking on that and giving me a few words as to what has promoted you to join today and what you're hoping to get out of it, that would be great. And Grant is going to help me with those answers when they come through. So get typing. Got any through yet? Is anyone out there? I need to know you're there.
Just so everyone's aware, we currently have 62 live viewers on the webcast at the moment from all over Australia. So welcome.
So Grant, tell us a few of the places people are.
Well, I can see that we've got a couple of people in Perth, and we've also got a couple of people in the Ridge Centre as well.
Fantastic.
All over Australia. A lot of people up and down the East Coast as well. So welcome everybody.
Great. So has anyone put forward why they've joined us today? What's made them come to this webinar?
So Peter Towers has asked, they assist SMEs to obtain grants. So we might want to talk a little bit about how the Entrepreneurs Programme can assist with that.
Sure.
Darren Johnson has said how to get an immediate engagement with a new connection.
Fantastic. Thanks, Darren and Peter.
We've also got Bruce. Bruce says he needs to differentiate between his company value proposition and his product value proposition.
Fantastic. That's awesome, Bruce. I love that you've already come to that conclusion, and I think we will talk about that as we progress through the webinar. That's wonderful. Thank you.
We've also got Terry. Terry's asked a cracker actually. He wants to gain a better understanding of his value proposition, and he's looking for a golden nugget. Do we have any golden nuggets, Debbie?
I hope so, Terry. So Terry, at the end of the session, come back to me and let me know if you've got a golden nugget. All right. Well, if there are no other questions or thoughts, I'll kick off, I think. Yeah. All right. So on to the next slide. The learning objectives of today. Okay. I guess to start with, we want you to understand what a customer value proposition is and how important it is to your business winning, which from what we've heard so far from the people out there is really important. Looking at the importance of understanding your target customers' needs and wants and some of the techniques to achieving that. Learning the basic elements of a strong and compelling value proposition, and we'll go through our methodology on that. And then how do you embed that value proposition into your business winning approach and when you are talking to new people to assist them with realising that you are someone that they want to learn more about, because that's the upshot of what the value proposition is. It's the start of gaining interest into your business and your products. So I'm assuming that everybody has their workbook. I'm just going to hold it up there. If anyone doesn't have it, could you just quickly put it in the ask a question so I'm aware that you don't have it? Thank you. And let's have a quick look at the agenda. So we're going to look at analysing your target audience, how you define your value proposition, and then focusing a little bit on the successful delivery of it. And there will be the Q&A session at the end where both Grant and I will be available to answer questions for you. I'm not going to worry too much about the duration. I think we'll probably say that this will take an hour to an hour and a half, and we'll just see how much interaction we get from you as to how long it lasts. All right. So the first, well, I guess I am actually going to ask a poll now just to see if the poll is working. On the next slide, you'll see we talked already about what you want to achieve, but I just want you to have a go on the first poll of why you joined today. There's a few different answers there, and just choose one or multiple answers. If you want to open the poll now, it's open. All right, so just use the poll, and I'll close it in a second or two. All right, let's close that poll and see why you're here. Grant, have you got the results?
I'm just waiting for the results to come up now, Debbie.
Okay. Jordan, have we got the results coming through? That was a yes from the technician in the background, who's being a fantastic support to us right now. All right, he's bringing them into the room. Feels like the Oscars. Thank you. All right. Okay, so it tells me that 58% of you would like increased knowledge, 18% some new knowledge, and 24% are just interested to hear what I have to say. Sounds pretty good to me. So obviously the polling is working, and that's great for me to know as well. Okay, so let's move on to the 5 elements of a successful value proposition. So if we're looking at value proposition today, and that is a part of our marketing and skills overall full day workshop. So we're going to focus on the defining your value proposition, having a look at your audience, defining your value proposition, and then a little bit on the actual delivery of that value proposition, which is actually very important as we go along. Okay. So if I just look at your workbook as well, so you're following me, you can see the diagram down the bottom, the 5 elements of successful marketing and presentation skills on page 1. All right, so let's have a think about our target market on analysing your target audience. So do you know who you want to target for your business? And as Bruce said, for your product, because I'm sure many of you out there have multiple products within your business, and actually you need to think about the different target audience for those products. Okay? The next thing you want to think about when you're looking at your target audience is what? And that's, again, back to Bruce. Bruce, I'm so glad you joined. What do you actually want to target them with? Okay? Then thinking about the how. How am I going to reach my target market? Now, I want to bring up to you the idea that you may need different value propositions for different products, but also for different target audiences. So a lot of people, when I run these workshops face-to-face, talk to me about distributors. And the fact is that you may need a very different value proposition for your distributor than you do for your end user. Now, there has to be a theme that comes through. I'm a hand talker, can you tell? There has to be a theme that comes through, because clearly you want your distributor to be able to use the same words and some of the same value in how they then talk to their end users to get your product sold. But you may have to have a different value proposition depending on whether you are targeting the distributor in the first instance or you're going directly to the end user. So I want you to start to think about that. And then obviously we have to look at how do we actually deliver to our target audience. Are we going on trade missions? Are we going to trade shows? Are we just going to networking events? And if we're going to networking events, then perhaps we have to be, excuse me, a little bit less technical in our value proposition, because the people that are at networking events might not be in your direct industry or understand your product or your organisation. So I want you to start thinking about those things. What do you expect from your audience when you deliver to them? What is it that you want them to walk away from a conversation or a presentation from you with that makes them go, I'd like to know a bit more. I wonder what they're really doing. I need to have a further conversation. So what is it that you think you need to give them to get them coming back for more? Okay. All right, so that leads us into the next slide, which is all around hot buttons. Has anyone ever heard of a hot button before? You may have heard of them in a different way. At Dumond, we talk about hot buttons. The reason we talk about hot buttons is because we like to think of hot buttons as the themes and emotions that get your customer excited or your target audience excited, because remember, it could be a distributor. Now, a distributor could be excited by the idea that you pay on time. Okay? A customer doesn't care about you paying on time. A customer cares that you are the cutting edge at innovation in what you do. So that starts to help you differentiate between what a distributor might want and what your end user and final customer might want. So I want you to take a couple of minutes now to brainstorm for yourself, and you've got space on page 2. Okay? I want you to think about what gets your customer excited, either about your organisation or about your lead product. So perhaps you've got a new product that you want to go live with, and this workshop that you've come to is actually about you thinking about, okay, I've got this whiz-bang new product and I want it to go live, so how am I going to establish a value proposition for that product? That's fine. You can do that throughout this whole workshop. We can look at for you, what are the hot buttons and what are the things that get the customer excited about your new product? And for others of you, it will be about your business in general. Okay? There's some space on the right-hand side of page 2 for you. You know, there are some basic hot buttons. We talk about value for money, price, schedule, quality, innovation, and risk. They are important. I'm not downplaying them, but I want you to try and create some uniqueness around your hot buttons for your customer or your end user. The other thing that I want to make really clear about hot buttons, which when you are an SME and you perhaps are very passionate about your product or your business, you are often thinking about what is exciting to you about your business and about your product. Hot buttons are not about what's exciting to you. They are about what's exciting to your customer and your target audience. And that can be quite different. So I really need you to step outside the I love what I do and I've got a great product. I want you to think about, how do I make that product look really appealing, and what is appealing to the customer and my end user about my product? Not what I think, what do they think? So really step into their shoes. So we're just going to have a few minutes of silence on my end, and then I'm going to, and while you brainstorm your hot buttons, and then I'm going to ask you to use your ask a question button and start throwing through some of the hot buttons that you've come up with, and we'll discuss them with everyone, because it's really helpful to do brainstorming. So the more information that I get from you guys, I think the more information you'll get out of this. All right, so we'll just take few minutes where you can listen to some lovely serene music and do some brainstorming on your hot buttons. Go for it. All right, how did we go with our hot buttons? Grant's got a few bits of feedback, but I'm going to ask you now, if you've had a time to brainstorm, can you just quickly go to ask a question and type in some of the hot buttons that you've come up with for your business, because it would be really fantastic to have a spread of hot buttons that we can talk about. It will help other people at the other end of the webinar as well. So Grant, what have we got?
Yeah, well, you're doing that, guys. Bruce, you said hot button. How can I have a good business and a life and decent holidays? So it sounds like there's a bit of a life balance thing there for you, Bruce.
Is that for the customer, Bruce, or for you?
Yeah, that would be good to know. Helen asks, for organisations which promote our services, they can show value to their clients, educate themselves on business development, and allow them to be seen and know that they make a contribution. So quite a lot to that one there.
Yeah, so Helen, you might want to really try and, there's some great words in there, so you might want to break that down into 5 or 6 words that your end customer can get from the person selling your services. Good work.
John, for a family and pet safe pest treatment, it's about solving your pest problems.
Yep,
for the customer.
Yep. So you could stretch that out a bit there, John, and think about what else is it? Is it about timeliness for those people in solving that problem? Is it, and when even in terms of timeliness, is it about how quickly you answer the phone? Is it about how quickly you get to their house? Is it about how quickly you kill the pests that you need to go and get rid of? And other hot points, you know, is there a lot of competition in the pest killing business? Thus, price becomes quite important. Is there a hot button around the chemicals that you use compared to other organisations? So really delving down into the next level of what the hot buttons would be for that customer.
A couple of other ones coming through. Giles has got consistency. We do what we say we do.
Nice. That's a really good one.
Arthur, you've got meet very tight schedules, but have flexible delivery dates.
Okay, so time is important, but the customer changes the goalposts is what I'm getting out of that one. So you have to be flexible as an organisation. So that is a hot button both for you and the end user.
Anne's got 2, value for money and empowerment through knowledge.
Okay, empowerment through knowledge, nice. See, I find it so hard being at the end of the camera, guys, I have to say, because what I want to do now is have a really good discussion with you around what that actually means to your organisation and understand it about it. But given that we're on a webinar, I don't have that facility. So the more interaction you can provide to Grant and myself through the Ask a Questions, the more value you will get out of this as well. Have we got a couple more?
Yeah, we've got a good, one from Roger here, which is got a bit to it. Our repair work increases our customers' productivity and hence income. It also reduces their waste, plus a simpler payment system if adopted. A bit to that one there.
Okay, so I guess, Roger, for you, you're almost putting together your value proposition there, and you might actually want to take a step back and really just try and have one or two words around the hot buttons, which then you would build back up into your value proposition, but maybe you're a step ahead of me anyway, so you can ignore me.
And Kate's come through with, we provide high quality, we are solution orientated, fast turnaround and small lot size.
Nice. Really succinct, Kate. Yep, that would work really well. Okay, well, we might move on to look at how to use those hot buttons in your value proposition. All right. Okay, defining your value proposition. What does that mean? All right, I'm actually going to show you a video now, and this is a video from some senior executives at a few various defence organisations. It was taken at an air show in Melbourne last year. And if you listen, there's some fantastic words that they say they need to hear when they are talking to SMEs who want to sell them a product into a big multinational organisation. So, Jordan, if we could have the video, please.
I think the first thing is, who is it that you're targeting at? You've got to know the market, or you've got to know the people that you're targeting. Then you've got to be really clear about what they're going to be looking for in that. So you've got to take the value proposition and relate it to the opportunity that you're pursuing and what the selling points of it. Then it's sort of about, you've got to make sure it's something that grabs their attention. There's too many Me Too's out there. So what you've got to do is, what makes you different from every other guy that would get in that elevator and talk to that person at the same time? So you've got to have something that makes you stand out so that they remember it. And then lastly, it's very easy to give a good sales spiel, but the hard part is the evidence. You've got to demonstrate something that's got a little bit of credibility so they can look at it and sort of say, hey, this isn't just a pitch, there is something tangible behind that. It is a discriminator, and it's worthwhile for me following up, and I'm interested in it.
I think without a doubt, the most compelling issue is having a clear market differentiator. Now, not many companies understand what we're talking about here. What we're looking for is something which brings value to the prime. Yep. And that is a value proposition by way of either a cost benefit, a technology benefit, or a productivity benefit that brings a competitive advantage to the prime in an opportunity that they're chasing. And that's absolutely critical. So you need to differentiate yourself from your competition and make sure that you bring something of value to the prime. Have a look at what your unique selling points are going to be. Have a look at what are the market drivers and what unique selling points you've got that brings something special to the party that nobody else has got. And if you can do that, then you will absolutely attract the prime's attention.
All right, guys, what did you think of that video? I would love to hear what you got out of it. If you can just type in the Ask a Question box, what's one thing that you took out of that video that you hadn't thought about around value propositions before? Get typing. What's one thing that you got out of that video? Got anything, Grant?
Not yet.
Was it a waste of time? Did you get that out of it? No, we've got something.
So Bill has said tangible evidence.
Great, thanks, Bill.
David's also saying differentiation value. That's a good one.
Yep.
Marco says, can your value proposition also be credibility? I guess
Very
that's
much.
part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, we're just about to go into that, Marco, so thank you.
And Warren, very good, Warren, being clear about our offer.
Yep. So the feedback that senior supply chain leaders will give you, which is like the people in that video at big organisations, is that when SMEs come to them with a great idea, and usually it is a great idea, they are not as good as they could be at actually being able to be clear and concise about the value that that product or service adds to the larger organisation, which then makes it very hard for that large organisation to on-sell it on your behalf. So that clarity and conciseness is really, really crucial when you're talking with the bigger organisations who may be able to help you grow your business. Yep.
Darren also makes a very good point, Debbie. He says being different but being able to back it up as well.
You guys are so good. Thank you. All right, I'm going to move on to the I guess our formula now, because so many of you have already come forward with components of it that I want to help you put it together. The first thing I want to ask is through a poll, and I just want to ask a very simple question. Who has actually written a value proposition? I'm sure a lot of you talk about your value proposition, some of you formally and some of you just informally, but who has it written down and called a value proposition? Can you just answer that poll for me? If we can open the poll, please. And do you want to close the poll for me, please, Jordan? All right, Grant, what have we got?
Okay, so 31% of you, yes, you do have a value proposition already, and 69%, no.
Okay, great.
So about just over 2/3 don't have a value proposition.
So that's actually a really normal statistic for what we come across in SMEs, and Grant, you must come across that quite regularly.
All the time.
And that's, I guess, why this workshop is on today. For those of you that don't have a value proposition, it's to try and create one in this time. And, you know, let's face it, we will start it. It's going to take refinement to finish it. And for those of you that do have one, it's making sure it's the right value proposition for the right business and product, or differentiating it between your products. And also perhaps it's then solidifying that actually you're on the right track and you're doing really well. And that's a really nice thing to know about your business as well.
Warren's also made a very good comment as well, Debbie. Warren wrote his value, or his company's value proposition, years ago, and hasn't updated it. So does a value proposition change over time?
Yeah, I think that's a really great comment, Warren. What I would say is, if you have a business strategy, which I guess is taking it to the wider view of where a value proposition comes from, is your business strategy. If you don't have a business strategy, then that is something that you need to work on. And there are varying ways of how you can get support for that. But like a business strategy, a value proposition should be updated at least yearly. But really, anytime you're going into a new market, which may be a new foreign market, you might be wanting to export to a different country. If you have a new product, if you have even some new technology, you actually need to update your value proposition based on that. And as we're about to experience, that idea of proof in your value proposition actually needs updating too. Because obviously, as you progress as an organisation or a product, you will have more experience and more proof of which you need to solidify in your value proposition to ensure that potential clients feel very comfortable with what you're achieving. Okay? So let's have a look at the formula. Okay, so I want you to start up the top with market. Once again, we go back to that target audience. Who is your target market for this value proposition? Now, there's no use in writing, if you're a pet food company and you have varying different types of pet food, you don't want to create a value proposition around rabbit pellets if actually you're about to go to a pet shop that is supremely, that's the wrong word, that is specialising in dogs. Okay, so knowing the market that you want to create this value proposition for is vital, and stating that market in the value proposition is important. Then I like to put proof and experience together in one sentence. Your value proposition is probably 3 to 4 sentences long, so there's not a lot of space for extra words. So I think if you have experience and proof together, it helps to limit the number of words you have. Experience is based around perhaps countries that you're already exporting to, or number of years in business, or you've won an award in your industry. Proof is talking about who you've worked with, potentially. If you've got some big name people that have bought your product, or you've been able to sell it to, say, Maya, over the last 20 years. It's about proving to the person that you're pitching to that you are viable and fantastic and other people value you. It's creating that level of trust without having to have a written reference. Okay, so you can put that into the same sentence. Then we need to think about the offerings. What is it that you are actually offering? And as we discussed before, sometimes you need to limit the offerings in your value proposition because some of your offerings aren't valid to the person you're pitching to. So think about what offering is it that you're focusing on, or what offerings do you need to narrow down a little bit to hit your target market, or perhaps it's a service and actually the offering is the whole service, and that's absolutely fine. I think have you got a question there that's come through around this?
Yeah, no, Brendan's just asked a question relating exactly to what you're talking about just now, Debbie. The fact that Brendan works for a solar hot water system manufacturer. He has 3 very different markets, so he needs really 3 different value propositions there, Debbie.
So my advice there, Brendan, is that the proof and experience may be the same across all those 3 value propositions, and the offerings may differ, and as we're going to see, the other components will. So I think you need to be generally thinking about that there are certain words that represent your organisation, okay, and your business, and those words will come through in every value proposition that you write. But when you talk about your offerings and the proof of where you've been successful and the market that you go to, then you may need to set up 3 different value propositions. And if that was on your web page, for example, there would be an overarching statement, mission, whatever you want to call it. But then on each page of the different products, you will have a different value proposition for each of those products. Okay, and at the top of, say, brochures, each of the value propositions will have a component of the overall mission for the organisation, but each brochure will have a slightly different value proposition. I hope that helps. Benefits. What are the benefits of your product or your service or your organisation compared to those around you? Now that comes quite closely with alternatives and differentiation, and someone did mention that earlier as well. So I want you to think about here is, how do you big yourself up without putting down the opposition in a written format? Because the last thing you want to do is diss your competition. That never looks good for anyone. But what you do need to do is be able to clearly articulate what differentiates you from your competition, and what are the benefits of your service, product or organisation above your competition. That takes some thought and honing, so I'll be asking you for your whole value proposition shortly, and if you've got any questions around that side of it, just sing out, use the ask a question button. Okay, so you can see also in your workbooks that it is about providing a solution to the problem. It's about looking at the key capability discriminators, which there is your alternatives and differentiation. What is different for you above your competitors? Credibility, proof and experience, and customization. Exactly what Warren said before. I have 3 different products, but I am the same business. That's fine. Customize it for each of your products, because each of your target markets will be different for those products. That's really important and perfectly valid to have multiple value propositions. So what I am going to ask now is that you spend just a few minutes on page 4. You will see that there's some space to do a bit of brainstorming around each of the components of the value proposition. That's your space to just brainstorm. And then down the bottom, there's a good space for a paragraph. If you're at that point, it would be wonderful for you now to spend a few minutes actually trying to write a succinct paragraph of your value proposition. Now remember, we're talking 3 to 4 sentences. Try and put the name of your organisation in as many times as you can. Try and have it in every sentence if you can. Try and use very positive language that emanates a good feeling from the person reading it or the person that he's hearing that information. And think about the key words that represent the product, the organisation and the service. And then I always find the little words like and the and is, they just pop in. But you need to be clear on what the values of your offering are and how you differentiate yourself. So we're just going to put that nice music on again. I hope it was nice. And give you a few minutes to come up with that. And then I am going to ask some of you to be really kind and type in as much as you can into Ask a Question. It has a 1,000 character limit. That could be quite beneficial. If you can write a value proposition in less than 1,000 characters, I think, and it's succinct, I think you'll have a very good value proposition. So that's my challenge to you in the next couple of minutes, is to write your value proposition and try and type it up to us in less than 1,000 characters. All right, we'll be back in a minute. Good luck. All right, guys, how did you find that? We've had some wonderful responses, so thank you. It makes my job so much easier when I have an audience that are really keen to send in their information to me, so thank you. So what we're going to do now is Grant is just going to read out a couple of examples that you guys have sent through, and we'll have a bit of a chat about it. Maybe both Grant and I will have some feedback for you, and it might help those of you, others of you on the line, to think about how your value proposition's propping up.
Great. So we've got John from Seymour Termite and Pest Management. We offer a full, comprehensive, integrated pest management systems to homeowners, business owners, commercial and tenanted properties with strong customer service. Our philosophy is to offer a service that is friendly, thorough and reliable. We promise to be honest with you in our advice and dealings. We understand you are reliant on our professional guidance about your most valuable asset, your family and home. We offer free consultations to provide you the right information and plainly explain it, so you make the right decisions. A lot there, Debbie.
So much there, but so good. I love that the differentiator, I take away that the differentiator straight away is that you offer a free consultation. That to me puts you in a different league perhaps to a lot of your competitors, so I really like that as a differentiator. I think there's a lot of words there around customer service, and that maybe we could condense that some of those are actually your values. Hard, I know, confusing, value proposition versus values, but some of those are the values of your organisation, which I would expect to see on written documentation and your website, but you probably need to work out which of those ones actually stay in the value proposition. Do you talk about exceptional customer service, or was it or which is kind of general, but I quite like the honesty side of it. So maybe that's what stays in the value proposition. Grant?
Yep, no, absolutely. And we've also got Marco from a company called Soaring Health. We work with everyday athletes just as passionately as we do with Australia's leading sports professional to help them soar. Soaring Health can help you improve your quality of life and reduce physical limitations. All this is done in a state-of-the-art facility with little to no waiting time.
Okay. I would like to know which Australian athletes, if that was me and I was thinking about why I was choosing you, and I'm just, Debbie who does a bit of running, and you're happy to help me. I'd like to know who you're working with. Maybe you can't say specifically, but maybe you can say the sport that you work predominantly with. That would help me to feel like there was evidence and proof that you were working with athletes. I work with the Australian hockey team, or I work within the Australian rowing community or national rowing community, whatever it is. That would really help. Can you just read out the last line of that for me again, please, Grant?
Sure. So we had, all this is done in a state-of-the-art facility with little to no waiting time. Okay,
so the word done is kind of a wasted word in that. This is probably your first pass at it, Marco, so don't be offended. But think about a more sophisticated word to represent done, and you could probably even condense that in a sophisticated facility. So something like treatments performed in a sophisticated facility with pretty much no waiting time, or with no waiting time. Yep. Or we guarantee no waiting time, or whatever it is that you offer that is your that differentiates you from your competitors. Yep.
Talking about evidence, Debbie, we've got Damien here from a company called Adlington's. Adlington's target market is defence prime contractors. Adlington's are ISO 18001 4801 safety, 14,000 environmental and 9,001 quality accredited. Adlington's are leading national suppliers of precision piping systems for the air, land and sea defence sectors. Adlington save our customers 20% on average through optimising advanced automated manufacturing techniques. Adlingtons have completed many multi-million-dollar supply, fabrication and installation projects in full and on time for major primes including BAE Systems, ASC, Thales and ATK Launch. So a lot of evidence there.
A lot of evidence, a lot of detail. I guess you have said it's about piping, but I would like to know more. I guess, but perhaps if I was your client, I would know what you did. But just make sure that it is clear about what the product actually is that you provide. There may be multiple ones that might be what you've said might cover it, as much as you can. In terms of the accreditations that you've got, they are really important in defence. You're right to include them, but I would perhaps take them out of the first line, because actually that line you've got there, about 20%, that for me is the biggest hot button for a lot of these primes. And the ISO is still very important, but it might be the second paragraph. Say if you were going to have this written on a piece of paper or in your website, you might have the rest of that paragraph on the first one, and then your ISO accreditations might just be listed underneath. Or it's sort of the second or third line, but it's not the first thing. It's not the reason that people are coming to Adlington's. The reason they're coming is because you provide a superior pipe, and that you can reduce overheads by 20%. I'm sure I haven't said that correct, so I'm sorry about that. I'm trying to remember it all. I would just switch up how those sentences go. Think about what's your first sentence, and it's great that you use the name of the company so many times. The first sentence needs to grab you like that. The person that you engage with needs to go, I need that and I want to know more about them. They are the company for me, I want to know more. And the second line then brings that in. So for you, the first line is what we do. The second line is we reduce things by 20%. And all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, tell me more. Oh, you work with all of these primes, fantastic. And you're all these accreditations. Right, I want to know more. I'm going to have a meeting with your business development person. Okay, so it's about really hitting the mark with what are those hot buttons, what do people want to know first in that first line about you.
And Marco from Soaring Health has come back just to clarify the level of athletes that the company works with. So, and a question as well, Debbie. So Soaring Health works with Olympic athletes, A-League athletes and national lacrosse. Who would he pick and why?
That's, Marco, where you have to work out who your value proposition is to. If you're pitching to someone like me, who, is Soaring Athletes, are you physios? Or are you personal trainers? Are you coaches? Are you psychological coaches? Just quickly tell me. I won't delve too much more into it. Have you typed it in, Marco? Nope, you're not there.
So allied health, so physio and chiro and medicine.
Okay. So you have to decide then how to differentiate that value proposition based on who you are trying to attract into your business. So if you're trying to attract people like me, you might want to talk about a national lacrosse team and one Olympic athlete. If you are trying to bring on a new football team, then you want to probably throw the whole works at them and make sure that they know that you are fixing people at an elite level. So you do have to mix it up. And I guess you guys know when you go out and talk to people, you tell them different things depending on what you judge their hot buttons to be. And the same thing comes in with value proposition. Now, if that value proposition is written down, perhaps sometimes you miss it. Perhaps sometimes an opportunity is missed because that value proposition that is correct for 90% of the people in the room, but for 10% it didn't hit the mark. You can't cover every single person's hot button unless you know every single person that you're about to pitch to. I hope that helps, Marco. I think we'll leave it there and move on.
Great.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. It's wonderful participation. It is making it so much easier for me sitting in a room with just Grant to know that you're all out there and you're responding to the questions that I ask you. Thank you so much. So the next thing I want to talk about, actually want to go forward one more slide and then I'll come back. So in our value proposition, it's actually made up of 3 components, okay? We're thinking about how much effort we put into each of these and how long they are. The elevator pitch is the short, sharpest part of any value proposition and any pitch that you provide about your organisation or your products or services. The capability statement is often a one-pager that actually outlines who you are, what you do, competitive advantage, some testimonials, that kind of thing. And then you've got your corporate pitch, and that will be longer, and that might be 2 or 3 paragraphs long in an executive summary of a big tender that you're going to put in, okay? But the value proposition, the key elements of the value proposition, they come through all 3 of those parts of your pitching pyramid. In case any of you are thinking, oh my goodness, I have no idea what she's talking about in terms of a capability statement or a corporate pitch, Dumond Group do a lot of other workshops with SMEs, and we do a lot of work around one-to-one work, even helping SMEs to create their capability statement. That is a one-pager. It becomes really handy if you go to trade shows and on trade missions, or if you are networking and someone, instead of just giving a business card, you will make yourself really stand out from the crowd if you have an A4 page which has all your information on it in really succinct. It's almost like, it's like an infographic, but it's not as sophisticated as an infographic. So that really helps to put you ahead of the rest of your competitors at a trade mission or a trade show, to be able to give something more than just a business card. So let's go back then and look at the elevator pitch. So the 9 C's of the effective elevator pitch. Now, if your value proposition is 3 to 4 lines, then your elevator pitch is 1 or 2. And let's just say, I've got a couple of polls around this actually. Let's put the poll out and say, you probably know the answer to this because I just answered, I think, but who knows what an elevator pitch is? That's the first poll. And the second one is, where do you use your elevator pitch? So we'll open those polls now. Have we got the second one open as well, or are we doing one at a time? One. Okay, let's close off one then. And let's do the second one. Where do you use your elevator pitch? You want to open that up for us? All right, close that off for me, please. All right, what did we get, Grant?
Yeah, so I think most of you know what an elevator pitch is. 79% of you said yes to that. Only 21% don't know. In terms of where you use your elevator pitch, currently the majority of you, so 89%, have said when you talk to anyone who may be interested in your product or service.
Fantastic. So for those of you who are less familiar with what an elevator pitch is, it really was coined in an elevator. If you think about big American buildings, which are now all over the world, but the idea was that if you got in at the top floor with your perfect client or customer, you had 30 seconds, 45 seconds before the elevator hit the ground, and you'd lost their concentration and you'd lost them to yourself. So the idea was, in 30 to 45 seconds, what can you say about your product, service or business that gets people saying, so tell me more, okay? And that's really important anywhere you go, as you've all responded. You know, anyone you talk to, whether it's in the pub, in a cafe, at a networking event, in an elevator, weirder things have happened. On an aeroplane, Grant and I have been on an aeroplane this morning. You know, if you sit next to someone on an aeroplane who's got 30 seconds to intrigue you, and then you've got to sit next to them for the next hour, you either want to know more for that hour, or you want to say, thanks, I'll just read my magazine. Okay? So really think about, if you had 30 to 45 seconds to wow someone, what would you say? Now, I want you to think about these 9 C's around it. How concise is it? It has to be very concise. Every word counts in an elevator pitch. There's no room for fluff. Clear, compelling, credible, conceptual, concrete, Okay, it has to be real. Customised. So remember, everyone you talk to may have a different hot button. So you need to try and judge that hot button quite quickly in the conversation to work out how you customise it for them. Is it consistent? Make sure that what you're saying is consistent and conversational. So an elevator pitch is not, my name is Debbie, I work for the Dumont Group and we offer business training services around blah, 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 blah. That's not conversational. It's really hard to get that balance between letting someone feel that you are pitching to them in a casual way versus just rolling off your spiel and then they sit back and go, oh, okay, now what? So it's quite a hard balance and it does take practice. It's one of those things that could be embarrassing to do but worthwhile doing. Do it in front of a mirror. Okay, I'm going to go on and talk about the actual style of pitching that you would use after this, and I think sometimes we do need to see ourselves in a mirror to know how we are actually perceived and the words that we use. So sometimes pitching your elevator pitch to your friends, family, dog and mirror is quite useful. All right, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes again now on page 6 to just try and condense your value proposition into your elevator pitch. Remember, every word counts in this and you need to be able to say it. So the elevator pitch is not written as often as the value proposition. The elevator pitch is quite verbal. So make sure you can say the words that you're writing down and you don't scramble them. All right, I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes here, not too long. And then, once again, be brave, put them in Ask a Question, and let Grant read a few out to us and we can see if we're wowed by what you have to say. All right, go for it, guys.
Okay, how do we all go with that, guys? We've had quite a few responses there, so thank you for that. That's great. Just want to go through a couple of examples now. I'll start off. Warren, you've come back with one. Kadara provides engineers and project managers to organisations to help them deliver projects on time. That's a really strong sort of foundation for an elevator pitch. The one thing for me that it can make it stronger though is what makes you different? What makes you better than your competitors? We spoke earlier, Debbie spoke about differentiators and alternatives. You know, for me, I'd want to hear, okay, that's great, that's exactly what I need, but why should I